this is a review of the Dino Getter 1. This is from Sentinel's new Metamor Force line of figures. This is a line that seems to be mainly based around the Getter Robo series, and yeah, this is very evocative of Getter 1 from the original cartoon and manga series. Now, the difference between this Getter figure and your normal Getter figure is that, as the name implies, this is Dino Getter, so this is a dinosaur based Getter Robo. Kind of ironic when you think that the original Getter was fighting against the Dinosaur Empire, but never mind. So what Sentinel have actually done is they've made these Transformers, effectively. So you can probably guess what he's going to turn into. It is a pteranodon of some form. Never know whether it's a pterodactyl or something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the transformation first, show you how that all works, and then I'll put it back into robot mode and do a little bit extra on the robot, because once the transformation's done, there's a lot more with the robot really than there is with the dinosaur mode. Okay, so first off, I'm going to remove these nice big blades. Okay, so the first step with this is to sort out the head of the robot. So you fold up its ears, so they go all pointy, and then turn the head around. Then you open the chest pieces, which can be a bit tricky, so they just swivel out, and then you lift up the head. Now you can already see it's a dinosaur head there, and then this folds up over the top and kind of locks into place there like that. Then you take this part. Now this part is a little bit interesting. When I first got this, because it's on basically a ball joint there, and that's connected to a swivel. Now when I first got this, that ball joint was very stiff. I'm still quite worried about it, but it did feel like when I was turning it this way, it was going to break. It did feel there was too much friction there for the time at the time, but now it seems to be a lot smoother, so I don't know if that was just it kind of releasing itself. Anyway, so you swivel that down, and then you bring the crest and plug that in there. Okay, so that's the head all sorted. You can fiddle with these and get them to a decent position, but they do kind of just hang down there. Okay, so then we close the chest pieces up. So that's the head all sorted. Next bit is the arms. Now these, this point here, this pointy bit here, that pivots in, and that then allows a lot more maneuvering, so you can move this entire shoulder piece up here. Now the reason for that is because there's a little tab there, and that has to connect into a tab there. So we'll swivel that around, and before we do that we need to change these hands. So you just pop that open, make sure the hand is facing up to the wrist, and then you fold that back. That then fills in that gap. So when you've got it in robot mode, the dinosaur foot or the dinosaur claw fits in there nice and neatly, and then when you switch to dinosaur mode, the hand fills in that space instead. So once that's done, just close up the connector, and that's just on a single swivel. as you close that up, and then we need to, if we can get some focus on that, if we can get some focus on this, that then folds up into there. Now this is a bit tricky because this shoulder needs to effectively push up against it, otherwise it's just going to keep coming loose. It's not really a solid click in. But once that's done, you can then turn the hand around and you've got that arm sorted. So I'll just do the other one. So push in the shoulder, fold that up, swivel the arm around, open that up, turn the wrist back, and then spin it round. Now this joint here, it is just a pin swivel, and it feels quite solid when you're twisting it there, and I'm not seeing any form of wear there. I've transformed this quite a few times, so it does look like it's quite a solid construction there, so you don't need to worry about unfolding that too many times. Alright, so we'll just clip this in, fold the arm up a bit more, and then that will just seat itself in there. Okay. Right. You see, this is what I mean about this shoulder. Both shoulders they tend to play up because you're not getting enough pressure heading that way to hold these in, and it's very difficult to fiddle around with them. Okay, so the big part of this transformation is with the legs. Now these are kind of awkward. So the first step is there's a little gap there, and you basically, when you pull this up, you'll see that the peg appears. So you see the peg sticking out, and that peg has to peg into there. Now while you're doing this, you'll see the waist will constantly move. I haven't found a method of locking that. There doesn't seem to be any locking point at all. So it means that getting it up into that position here is a bit of hassle, because you quite often end up rotating the hips, and then you'll suddenly knock it out from that connector. I mean, it does connect in fairly solidly. I mean, it doesn't just drop straight out there, and you can see I can wiggle that, and it seems quite solid, but when you're trying to put pressure on there and this whole waist joint is moving, it really makes it a bit of a struggle. Now what's more of a struggle is this next bit. So what we basically need to do is that claw there needs to end up sitting over that knee there. How Sentinel have done this is quite interesting. It's quite tricky. So you pop off the front of the leg. Now that just connects via a couple of pegs here, and a peg on that side there, and then it's on two ball joints. So you've got one ball joint there, and then there's another ball joint buried in there, and you have to do the same for the back. That's got a similar setup, so you can see the two ball joints there, and then once that's released, you then move this whole plate up. So that's the side of the leg. This is one of the die cast elements, so it's pretty solid. These are both plastic, but this whole section here is die cast. And die cast features quite a bit in this. Most of the lower part is die cast. You've got the hips are die cast, those wobbly hips, they seem to be die cast. It does make the toy fairly solid, fairly heavy. It's proving quite tricky to transform one-handed, but part of that trickiness is basically the actual transformation itself. Okay, so once you've got that here, you need to place that up. You see, there's that hip joint going again. So you need to put that up here, and this, the peg holes on the underside here then need to go into these 3 points on here. And that's easier said than done, because you can't really see clearly where you're trying to place these when you're looking from above, and it sometimes feels like you've clipped it in, but you haven't. But in this case I managed to get it all sorted in one go. Okay, so once that's done, you then do the back. The back's got a similar arrangement. You've got your 3 pegs there, and then you use the ball joints to swivel this up and then peg it into place. Okay, right. Okay, so let's do this for the left leg. Okay. So you can hear there, I've got plastic rattling on plastic, and this peg system is really quite tricky. And it actually, this whole process of pegging these in, it actually kind of makes the rest of the transformation a bit easier, because these bits are the bits that do actually peg in really solidly, well, when you're not popping ball joints. It's a good job these are ball joints. Okay, so lift that up there, and then we have to find the sweet spot for plugging this in. Okay. Right. So once that's plugged in, you're left with this funny looking creature with massive feet. But actually, I'm going to replace these massive feet with these tiny little claws here. Okay, so to do this, there's a nice swivel here, and this allows you to raise this up. Now these claws need to be at the front, so they need to be over the front of the knee. To do that, what you do is turn this around, so get it half swiveled out, because this is a real struggle to get to turn around here if you've got it any lower, because of the how close it is to this particular point here. And it's generally better to pull this whole assembly on both sides, pull the whole assembly forward, because you've got to squeeze something past this bit here to get it through there, and as you can see, the claw is quite a bit thicker than this back part here. You do get a bit of extra leeway because this bends out, but it really is a lot easier to go backwards this way, and you're less likely to end up scraping the metal, because this is die cast, and that's all die cast, so you're not scraping the metal if you go through that way. Okay, once you get through there, this bit of plastic here, this plastic strut here, that has to clip in to that point there. Now this is easy going in, but not always so easy coming back out, and it does feel like you're putting a bit too much pressure, especially since it's, once you've got this into this position here, that's angled out, and you've just got a little thin pin running through there. You can see there's just a thin pin running through there, and that kind of, this bit just doesn't feel very safe. It's quite neat that this clips in, and then it keeps this quite solid, but it just doesn't feel safe for some reason. Anyway, once you've done that, you bring these claws down, bring them forward, and then around the back we need to raise this up here like that. Okay, so that's the left leg done. and the right leg. Well, actually, that was the right leg. This is the left leg. So turn that around, and you can already kind of pre-adjust the toes as well if you want, and then slide that through there and clip it on this one. Now this side is a bit tougher to clip, as you can see there, and it takes a fair bit of force to get it through there. Once it's through, just neaten that up. Okay, so there we have the Getter in dinosaur mode. Now surprisingly, it does actually stand on those two tiny little feet. You can see it's slightly balancing on there, but if you can actually balance it so that it's only standing on these tiny little claws, it's surprisingly well balanced. Now obviously you can see that doesn't look like a dinosaur. That looks like someone in a yoga position, strapped to a glider of some kind. It's only really when you look at the silhouette from above, as you can see there, or from the side, that you actually get that sense of dinosaur. And that's kind of a crying shame, especially with these lower legs. I mean, that does not look like a dinosaur leg. That looks like lots of little parts that are connected. It's, yeah, when you think that, like, so that's the Getter in Dino mode. Let me just put that off to one side if I can balance it. Oops. This is when it's just never going to balance, isn't it? Okay, now when you compare that to the kind of dinosaurs other people are doing, you can see this is just a lot more solid. Even looking underneath, like here, you just don't have, you have the obvious parts, but it just doesn't feel, it's just all enclosed. And once you've got it actually in dinosaur mode and you place it down, you know, it looks like a dinosaur. And this Getter just doesn't, it really does not look like a dinosaur. It just looks like a collection of metal parts. Now it is a lot more impressive from this side, and that's partly down to these, to the way these turn into these massive boosters, and that it's a lot cleaner with the big wing taking up most of the back space. And the other cool thing with this back bit is, if I just put that down there, so you take the blades that we had earlier, fold them up. I will talk about that in a bit, the folding up of these. Join these together, open these flaps here, and these ports here, there's 3 plugs, and they go into the back of the ports on the back here, and that actually kind of neatens a few things up once you can get these in place. It's not the easiest, just a lot of trial and error, but then you get a bit more of a cleaner silhouette, but it starts to look a lot less like a dinosaur from this angle. Yeah, it's just not a dinosaur. It's as simple as that. It's Dino mode. I mean, it can open its jaws. There's some nice pointy teeth in there, and the eye looks really quite cool. But yeah, this just doesn't feel like a dinosaur mode. It feels folded up. Now I have seen some shots of the next in the series, so that's Dino Getter 2. The dinosaur mode on there looks a lot more integrated than this one. It looks a lot less like it's folding itself up. There might be some limitations on it, but yeah, I really don't think this is quite as impressive as Sentinel were hoping. It's not bad, but this looks a hell of a lot better in robot mode. So yeah, so that's the transformation. I'm now going to quickly get this back into robot mode, I say quickly. It does tend to be a lot faster undoing all that you've done here, with the possible exception of these bits here, which they do terrify me. They do make me very worried that I am gonna end up breaking these off. I mean, they're solidly screwed in, but yeah, I'm waiting for that point to shear, and it's meaning that I'm not overly keen about turning it into robot mode or dinosaur mode too often, and just leaving it in one mode, which kind of defeats the object of a transformer, really. Anything that transforms, you should like both modes. Yeah, it's cool from here, that angle, yeah, quite like that, but any other angle and yeah, you're just seeing a robot all folded up. Okay, so I'm going to transform this back, and then we'll do a little bit more detail on the robot mode. Okay, so we're back in robot mode. Now, the robot mode is really where this is so much better. It's full of articulation, so you've got ball jointed head, there's some neck movement in there. So I don't know if you can see this, but the neck moves back and forwards. So it's fully ball jointed head. The arms have got a swivel at the elbow, which allows you to lift the arms up quite far. The wrists are on ball joints there, which is quite impressive. There's a some kind of ball joint mechanism here, which allows quite a bit of range of movement there. And of course, with the with this section folding up for transformation, you can actually bring the arm up quite a bit higher, if you like. So yeah, so the upper body is quite impressively designed. There's two parts to the abdomen, so you can see there's actually two. I don't know if it's two ball joints, but it does mean that you get quite a bit of movement going forward. Now, this is obviously limited by the fact that you've got this backpack on. It does provide a bit of weight on the back of this. You can remove it. I'll show removing that in a bit. But yeah, other than that, you get quite a nice range of movement there. The legs are on a nice swivel, so they can go out. Now, that's partly, they look good going out because of the transformation, but because of the transformation you get that happening quite a bit. I haven't found a way to lock these. You can see that it closes in, but it never seems to lock, and it does mean that quite often you start posing this guy and that happens, and it's not particularly loose. There's a nice solid pin in there running through, but yeah, it would just be nice to have something to keep this solid. But other than that, you've got the knee bends nicely. It's not double jointed. It looks like it will be, but I guess, oh no, actually, tell a lie, there is more movement in there than I noticed before. I have never been able to get that to move before. That is fairly solid, but it is great that that's actually movable, because that means you can get quite a, yeah, it's running fully 90 degrees now, whereas it wasn't before. Now the feet are on a ball joint, but they can tilt in this way, but tilting out doesn't work because of this. It's blocking against that. Now it obviously means that actually you can get a very solid pose out of this guy. You can spread the feet nice and solidly, and it really is an amazing robot mode. I think that the transformation kind of does a bit of harm to this robot mode, because all of the things that you need for the robot mode really kind of spoil it. I mean, you can turn the wrists because they're on ball joints, but you can't bend the elbow much past that. It looks like you can. Maybe it might be another instance of one of these mystery joints, and it does look like you should be able to, but it just doesn't move, and I haven't worked out how to get that to move. It looks like it's blocked. Yeah, you can see there that it's blocked by the plastic. So you can't actually, I mean, there's not much, there's a tiny bit of movement there, but it doesn't, once it gets to that point on the elbow, it's stuck, it's not going anywhere. And it costs this a lot, more so if you've played around with the Getter 1 figure that Sentinel did previously, and this guy is full of these nice neat little joints that allow you to do whatever you want with him. I mean, they close up cleanly, so he keeps a nice clean look, but you can get huge amounts of movement with it, and that's just not present in this figure, and it's all down to that transformation. If this didn't transform, this would be an amazing robot. It really would, especially as there's just there are extras with this guy. So you saw the two blades, so these plug into the back and they turn into the Getter Tomahawks. Now, word of warning, that's bloody sharp. I have stabbed myself numerous times because I've had my finger in the wrong position when I've opened this. There's a swivel, it locks, which is quite neat, so it locks in both directions, but yeah, watch out for that blade coming out. So these fit quite neatly. They're not, I mean, they are, there's no two ways about it. Getting this Getter Tomahawk gimmick in meant that they had to create these really quite thick things. It's, yeah, it's a bit strange. They look quite cool, as long as you have them that way. If you pose them that way, yeah, they look kind of awful. They're still not as good as a lot of other Getter Tomahawks. So you get two of those, and you also get two of these. So this is a scythe. It fits nice and neatly in his hand, but obviously there's one thing missing, and it's the blade of the scythe. And these are conveniently stored in the wings. So you can reduce the wing profile, but you get a nice huge scythe blade for him, and that is kind of cool. Scythe blades are always pretty wicked. Oh god, that's an embarrassing term to use. They are always pretty smart, and this is really nice. It is also incredibly sharp again. These points on here, they're all sharp. Well, actually, that one's not too bad, but the points on the end of the scythe are actually sharp. This bit's not sharp, not too sharp, the actual blade bit. But yeah, it's a neat figure. It's not a must-have for a Getter fan, I would actually say. I think if you want a Getter Robo, get Sentinel's previous Getter 1. That's substantially better than this. This is quite neat. It's a nice, neat gimmick. You can even removed the wing from it, so which is kind of a standard Getter thing, and this all folds up still quite nicely, but yeah, there's just too many problems with this. There's too many problems, and all of the problems are down to the fact that this needs to transform. The transformation is costly. It costs a lot. I mean, the figure costs a fair bit, but you know, all of these little gimmicks, you know, so having the plugs for the wings, all of these bits, yeah, they just really kind of spoil what could have been an amazing figure. And it's a shame. It's a shame. You know, even this wing gimmick kind of half works. And I think that it's too solid, and it needs to be solid because these two plugs, they have to go into something. So anyway, yeah, not the best of verdicts. I quite like this figure. I like it as the robot. I'll probably display it as a robot, but as a transformable Getter and turning into something as ironic as a dinosaur, yeah, it just doesn't work. It really needed rethinking. So yeah, not the best of verdicts again. It's very much one for really crazy Getter collectors. I'm perhaps not crazy enough. I'm going to give Getter 2 a try though, because that looks slightly different. Yeah, Getter 2 seems to be a lot more thought out. It's not something folding up. It is a actual more of a dinosaur than this, I think. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm probably not going to get Getter 3 because that one just looks kind of absurd. Two-headed dinosaurs don't do it for me. But yeah, interesting experiment by Sentinel. Mild failure of an experiment, to be honest. Really neat design, really cool looking robot, but yeah, this shouldn't be a transformer. It really shouldn't. So yeah, that's a review.